The City of Green Bay and the Office of Violence Prevention launching the Neighbors Together for Western initiative today, welcoming the community to a summer block party to help celebrate the mission. Our Drew Best joining us live in the newsroom after speaking with city leaders about the importance of that. Drew.
Cami, this is part of a citywide push to increase engagement at the neighborhood level. When focusing on this Western Avenue neighborhood, they hope to hear from those neighbors starting today about their priorities or concerns and connect them with resources to help. Dozens of neighbors battling some early rain to attend the block party. Those guests enjoyed a cookout as well as several games and activities while also getting time to connect with city leaders, organizations, and local nonprofits. The director of Green Bay's Office of Violence Prevention, who's helping lead the initiative, tells me one of their top priorities is to bring a sense of community and connection back into the neighborhood.
What we recognize is that when you know who your neighbors are and when you have folks that you can reach out to for support if and when you need it, that's going to make your life so much easier. It is going to be a support that has so many benefits.
Partners of the initiative also hope to take steps in building a Western Avenue Neighborhood Association. For the rest of the week, many of those partners will be knocking on doors in those neighborhoods, hoping to have direct conversations with more people about what they would like to see improved. Cami?